everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're talking about Among Cultists. Now, Among Cultists from Godot Games is a game which is clearly based on Among Us, and it's a social deduction game. And I wasn't sure if I was the right person to review the game because I'm kind of tired of social deduction games. They tend to do the same thing over and over again, and I've never played Among Us. I've played other little games online that are sort of like that, and I like the concept of it. I don't know. So I also didn't love the artwork of this game. There's an Among Cultists, the name didn't really inspire me. Well, obviously this is tuning up to but I actually liked it, which is true. But before we get into why I enjoyed the game, let's talk about how you play it. At the beginning of the game, you're going to see how many players are playing the game. It'll also tell you how many cultists are in the game. And you're going to be setting up a bunch of different things based on the number of players playing the game. You can also set it up slightly differently depending on how easy or hard you want to make it for everybody. Each person is going to have a card that shows their character, and you're also going to have a token that has your character out there. But you're going to be putting together envelopes, and each of these envelopes is going to be given to players. And in that envelope, they're going to get a token that tells them what their role is, which will usually just be a normal person, but could be a cultist. And then you're going to be getting cards in there. These are alive cards and success cards. And if you are an investigator, it's pretty much all you get. But the cultists will also get dead cards, failure cards, and even sabotage cards in their deck. The game is going to take place over a certain number of rounds, and you'll have tokens here to show different events that are going to go off. One player is chosen to go first. Here's the first player token. You're going to set this board up. Each of the different sections of the board can be flipped over, and you'll build a board based on the number of players. And you're going to go till either one of the two teams has won. Now, there's going to be more set up on the board here. Each of these different rooms is going to have a pile of cards next to it that might have successes or failures in that set. But in each round, the first thing that's going to happen is there's going to be several phases. First, there's a movement phase. Now, at the beginning of the game, each player is going to get one of these root cards here. These are going to show different colored rooms. And so this, for example, if I get this is on turns 1, 5, and 9. I can only take actions in orange, red, or green rooms. On 2, 6, and 10, pink and blue rooms. Now, as an investigator, I have to follow this. I can go to any room I want, but I can only take an action in these rooms. Now, the cultists do not have to follow this card, but if they take an action in an orange room 2 turns in a row, for example, they're going to blow their cover. In the movement section, players have 3 moves, and they'll be moving through these hallways to go across different things, and different things can happen while you're moving, but the biggest thing that happens is if you ever, while moving or at the end of movement, are in the same room as somebody else, you're going to each give each other a card. Now, if you are an investigator, you're just giving someone an alive card. If you are a cultist, you can give them an alive card or a dead card. You don't know what cards you've gotten. They're going to be shuffled and placed on a pile in front of you. So it's possible that you've been killed and you don't even know it. After that, you then have an action. There's an action phase, and there's a lot of different actions that you can do. You can check to see if somebody is alive, and basically you're going to look at the face-down deck of cards in front of them, and you'll tell them if they're alive or dead. As the cultist, you can straight up lie to them. If they are dead, though, now they're going to have somewhat different actions. You still play the game. We'll turn your character over to the ghost side, and we'll immediately have a vote to see if we know who the cultist is or not. Players are also going to be placing cards in rooms. You'll put in, if you're a good character, you're going to put in one of these success cards. The cultist can put in any card they want. Once there's 3 cards in a room, we'll turn that room over because that room has now been explored, and later on you can check that room. You'll shuffle the deck there, draw a card, and if you draw one of these successes, you'll take a book token at that room and bring the book token over here. Now this is important because this is how the good guys win. When an entire row is filled up, you get that many points, and you need a certain number of points to win the game as the good guys. While the bad guys, the cultists, can win at the end of a round by basically revealing themselves and having the right victory condition, which is enough dead people on the board. So if they've killed enough characters, then they just tell that. There's a few other rules. Actually, there's quite a few other rules. You can turn the power on and off in this room, which will do things. There's different rules that you can have, whether you are living or dead. There are some things, but a dead character can still be involved and can also help. And there also can be a vote, because you're trying to figure out who the cultist is. And if you can vote the cultist out and get rid of them, you can also win the game that way. Finally, it's not just cultists against investigators. You can have special roles that each person has, and they're listed on the bottom here, and you can do different things like the mechanic can ignore their route as long as they are alive. The crybaby cultist, after you had to reveal a dead character or the false eyes watching event, you just die. So there's some interesting things that can happen over the course of the game, and there's also expansions that will add and change more. So let's talk about some of the things I like about this game. Well, I guess maybe I should start with some things I don't like. I think setup is a bit of a pain. You have to put all the cards and the tokens in the envelope. You have to set things up. You have to set the envelopes up very carefully. In fact, there's a little bit of you're shuffling decks and putting things around so you don't know what it goes in where, but you can't mess up when you set up those envelopes. Now, the convenience is when you play, you hand someone that envelope. I also think the boards are really dark, and the books could have been better. I think the quality of the game, the cards are fine, but everything just looks dull and dark, and you can say it's part of the theme, but I think they could have done dull and dark, but at least made things look a little better. The rules themselves are not particularly great either. My first game of this, I was taught the game. Had I not been taught the game, I think I might have had more problems from the rules. Now, like I said, I enjoy the game. I think there's a lot of good things about this game. The biggest one being that it is a board game, as opposed to most social deduction games or card games. I like the idea of moving around the board. I love the concept of you're getting killed and you don't know it. Very much, you've been dead all along and you didn't know. I think that's a fun idea. You think you're alive and someone's like, come here, you're dead, dude. It's humorous, but it's also a really cool concept. The idea of the cultists have to be very careful because they want to kill people as they move along and go through. But they don't want to be too obvious about it. If I'm the only person who crosses paths with, Sam, and then he's dead, everyone's going to know it was me. And I think that's what's great about Among Cultists is the fact that there is information out there. Okay, this person's dead. Who crossed their paths? We now know one of those people is a cultist. Which one could it be? I think that's fascinating. That's really cool. And this room had a failure in it. Who did that failure? Now there are some cards pre-put into each of the decks in each room at the beginning, so you're not 100% certain. And this is not also a particularly new concept that's been in Battlestar Galactica and other games where you have a deck of cards, people put good or bad cards into them. But that combined with the fact that you're trying to kill people gives you enough information where you can sit there and go, okay, you did this, you did this, you did this, therefore I think you're the murderer. It's not a you look suspicious type thing. I mean, that's in the game. I suppose you could bring in the whole facial tics and everything, but you are literally doing that. And everyone has goals. The cultists are trying to kill people. The investigators are trying to go to the rooms and solve them and at the same time not get killed. And another good thing about the game is if you are killed, you aren't removed from the game. So you're still in the game, you still play. There's some slight differences, but it doesn't feel like you are a lesser character at all. It's just different on how you move. And I find that sort of thing to be fascinating. I think this is a big, giant game with a lot of stuff. And I think a smaller, sharper, cleaner, better looking version could have been a huge hit. As it is, this is a very big hit. A lot of people are interested in it. I like it a lot. I'm giving it a 7.5. It's very enjoyable. I have a lot of fun playing it. The idea of going around and finding people, the investigation part of it, I found all that to be good. I think it could have been better. There's like 2 more expansions with more stuff. It just feels like there's so much stuff but the game system itself is really well done. And really cool. You can make your own characters, which we did. There's just a lot of the debates and the interesting, and you remember the game is also not particularly long. It says on here 45 to 90 minutes. I think that's very accurate, and I think it's going to lean closer to an hour, and that's a really good solid amount of time. There's stuff going on from the beginning. You have information from turn one. I think it's balanced for the cultists or for the investigators to win. So all that coming together lets me overlook the setup and some of the other stuff. I think it could have been great, but as it is, I think it's very good. There's a lot of interesting things. And people who have played Among Us say that it's very similar to that game. And people who have played this, I've had a mixed reaction. Some people have not loved it, but a lot of those people don't love social deduction games in general. But people who do like social deduction games have found this one to be enjoyable, as I do. So that's Among Cultists. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time on the Dice Tower.